2017 Chevy Silverado 1500 4x4. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to do front brake pads and rotors. What you need to do is jack it up and support it properly. Remove the front tires. 7/8 for the lug nuts. So now you got a retainer. Some do, some don't, if it's already been done. But this is a T30. You need to remove that. Sometimes they are stuck in there pretty good. And if they're stuck in there pretty good, then you need to hit them with a chisel to see if you can break them loose. Otherwise, get a die grinder, put an X in it, and bust the little pieces out. It'll be like 4 pieces in there if you put an X on it. And just bust those out, and then you can get the rotor off and remove the threaded piece. All right, so we got that out. Next we need to do is remove our caliper. And these have 2 caliper slide bolts. And these are 19. So you need to remove these caliper bolts. One here and one here. And once you get them off, then you can get your caliper off. You have these 2 caliper bolts off. 19mm head. Get a flat blade screwdriver, stick it inside here, pry the caliper off, and go ahead and remove it. You don't want to hang it. If you get yourself an S-hook, you can hang it on the frame. All right. And then you need to do is inspect your boots, make sure they are not torn, make sure they're not leaking any fluid. If they're leaking fluid or torn, then they need to be replaced. And also, your caliper slides. Make sure they are free. Make sure they turn. If they don't turn, like this one, they're frozen. We'll have to see if we can turn it and break it loose. Otherwise, we'll have to replace the caliper assembly because all they're going to do is it's full of rust in here. They're just going to lock up on you again. Okay? So to remove the caliper bracket, you got 2 18mm headed bolts in the back. Remove those, and then you can remove the caliper bracket. Here's the caliper bracket bolts, 18mm. Here's the caliper bracket. If yours aren't frozen, then go ahead and proceed. Remove your pads and remove your hardware off of there and clean that surface up inside there. Get all that rust out of there. Make sure it's nice and clean so you can paint them. And then pull out your slides and clean those up and put some new Seal Glide on them. All right, that surface down in there needs to be cleaned up. That's what I'm talking about. Clean it up, get it nice and shiny, and then you can paint it. I got my slide out, but I damaged my boot. So I need to get a new boot or possibly a new caliper and bracket. Okay, moving along. Rotor, need to get the rotor off. If the rotor is bonded onto the hub, then you need to smack it with a hammer. The vibration will break it loose. Spray it with some penetrant. Mine came loose. Rotor is off. If your hub is all rusted, clean it up best you can. If you can't clean it up very good and it's still way wasted with chunks out of it from the rust, then go ahead and replace the hub bearing. But if it cleans up pretty good, then go ahead and put some anti-seize on it to help prevent it from rusting up in the future. This hasn't been done. It's a stepped hub, higher on the outside and the inside. Outside, inside. The center here is lower. This is stepped up, so don't grind these away to make it even with that. So you put a fine film anti-seize on there before you put your rotor on, and make sure you wash the shipping oil off your rotor before you put it on there. And also you need to push your pistons back in if we're going to reuse the caliper. I'm going to double check my other side next to see how things are going with that side, and that will decide if I'm going to go ahead and replace both my rotors, calipers. All right, this is the driver's side. Caliper bracket is okay, but the boots don't really make a good seal. know, that's going to allow it to get water in there in the future. So I might just go ahead and replace the calipers. All right, now this is what I was talking about, the hub being all rusty. You need to clean that up inside here. See how that is. Different in the color here. From there to there. Might have high and low spots, but that's got to get cleaned up. So we're not going to clean this up to this surface because this is supposed to be higher and lower. We're just going to clean this up just a little bit. I'm going to put some anti-seize in there, and that'll hopefully help us out. All right, here's my hub. So now I'm going to put a fine film anti-seize on there before I put my rotor on there. Next you're going to do is put a fine film of anti-seize on your hub. Get your new rotor. Remove the shipping oil off of it with soap and water, brake clean, glass cleaner. And if you're going to replace the calipers, then you need to pinch off the brake hose. I use vice grips. I'm not pinching the crap out of them. I'm just squeezing them enough just to restrict the flow. And then I'm going to remove the caliper. I got to remove the banjo bolt, and that's an 11 millimeter or a 7/16. You take that bolt out, and there'll be 2 sealing washers. Make sure they don't stick to the brake hose. Okay. And also, if you're not replacing your brake calipers, you need to clean up your caliper bracket. See right there how rusty that is and nasty? You need to clean that up. Get that nice and cleaned up. Get it looking like that. And then put some paint on it. And also you want to do is put some Silglide on your caliper slide pins, okay? Take these out, put some Silglide on them. Silglide for your brakes, okay? Then after that dries, you can go ahead and put your hardware on it, the bundle clips, and then you can go ahead and get your rotor on, your retainer bolt, your caliper bracket, get your bolts, get them in there, get them snugged up, and then we'll get the torque for that. Rotor is on, got my anti-seize underneath, got my retainer, get that snugged up, caliper bracket on, got my hardware bundle clips in there, got my caliper bolt bracket bolts snugged up, torque them to 175 foot-pounds, and then you got the caliper off. Now you need to remove the copper washers, and also that the banjo bolt from the factory, they crimp the inner washer to the bolt, so you can't get the bolt won't come out. So you got to put a pair of pliers on the washer, hold the pliers, and then get your gun and remove the bolt. Okay. Now I'll just get a little screwdriver and just pry that one out. And then when I get the caliper on here, I'll put my hose on it with my 2 washers, one on each side. You might want to clean this up because this piece rusts and it might cause it to leak if you don't clean it up. See how it looks right now? Doesn't look too good. So you need to clean that up. You need to clean it up and get yourself a little screwdriver and scratch that rust out of that washer seat, okay? Now if that's all done, now we can put our pads in. This is our outer pad. Goes in there like that. Clips right in because they act like little springs in there. Everything takes 2 hands, you know? Yep. Takes 2 hands, everything. Just like that, okay? Boom. All right, now that's that one. Now this is the inner one. It's a little bit bigger. Okay, the back, that's because of the 2 pistons. And this one's got an anti-squeaker on it. So let's see here, the rotor is going to roll this way when you're going forward. So the squeaker needs to go towards the rotation, and that would be the bottom. So you need to put that in there. Just push that other one aside, because they act like little springs, right? So now the inner one's on. Now I can get my new caliper or my old caliper, put my caliper on, push these in, the slides in so you can get your caliper past them. Then you can put your caliper bolts in. So I'm going to get my caliper over here and get that bolted, that banjo bolt in it. Caliper's on. Got your caliper bolts, got them snugged up, and you need to torque those to 75 foot-pounds. If you did replace the caliper and you're ready to put your brake hose on, don't forget, you got 2 washers on it. Got one underneath the block, between the block and the caliper, and one right here on the bolt. All right, so now what we need to do is snug that up and then tighten it up to, I think it was 18 foot-pounds. And then we can remove our clamp. If you replaced your caliper, you got your banjo bolt tight, remove your bleeder screw, put some anti-seize on the threads, put it back in, and just let it sit there loosely, and remove your vice grips, your clamp, so maybe a gravity bleed while you're doing the brakes on the other side. So do the other side exactly the same way. Remember, it was 170 foot-pounds for these bolts, 75 for these bolts, 18 for the banjo bolt. All right. ANSI's on the hub, new rotor, washed off, retainer bolt, caliper, bracket, 2 bolts, 175 foot-pounds, retainers, your hardware, abundant clips, pads. Inner pad is the bigger one, the outer pad is the smaller one. Next you can do is put the caliper on. If you're not replacing your calipers and you're reusing your old ones, you got an old pad, C-clamp, tighten it up and it pushes the pistons back in. All right, and make sure you have your brake hose not twisted or bent to restrict the return of the fluid into your master. If you're replacing your calipers and you're going to replace your banjo bolt, this is what I'm talking about. See the washer right here? It's on there, so you need to grab hold of that washer with some pliers and then get your little gun and remove it. All right, your caliper's on. Got your bolts. Those were the 19. You tighten those to 75 foot-pounds. And then you got your brake hose, brake line, with the 2 new washers, one between the block and the caliper and one underneath the bolt. Snug it up, tighten it up to 18 foot-pounds. Remove your bleeder, put some anti-seize on it, and just thread it back in a little bit and let it gravity bleed for a little bit. But if you didn't replace your calipers, then you're all set. What you need to do is put your tires on, torque the lugs to 140 foot-pounds, lower the vehicle down, and push the pedal to the floor a couple times. Make sure you got a decent pedal. But right now, I'm waiting for it to bleed. So I might have to open up the door and push the pedal to the floor a little bit just to get it started. I pushed the pedal to the floor a couple times to get the fluid into my calipers. Now I see that they're dripping. Is it dripping? So now I can go ahead and close them off and snug them up. And then what I'll do is I'll tap on them with the hammer. That vibration will try to work all the little air out of inside around the piston and inside the seals in there and bring the bubbles up to the top. And then what we'll do is I'll close the bleeder. I'll lower it down a little bit more or whatever. And then I'll go ahead and push the pedal to the floor a couple times. That will actually push the pistons out. And I also will push some more fluid inside here, inside the caliper. And then I'll come over here and I'll bleed it again and see if I get any air bubbles out. I pushed the pedal to the floor a couple times. Tapped on it to help loosen up any air bubbles that's inside there. You know. And also what helps to help gravity bleed is to have the reservoir cap off also. Have the cap off so it helps it just bleed right through there. So I don't have mine off, but it's up in the air. So here we go. See if I can see any air bubbles coming out. Hold on. All right. See him coming a little bit? Aha. So I just let it sit there until I see it come out. Like I said, sometimes I need to have the reservoir cap off to allow it to come through. Oh, here it comes. Yeah. Now we'll see if it's going to start dripping. Yeah, it works. It bleeds a little bit fast if you had the reservoir cap off. You get the idea now. So that one's pretty good. I'll go and double it, check it again. I'll go ahead and push the pedal to the floor a couple times more and redo it. Let's go check the other side. They're coming. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and remove that cap, but you get the idea. So the next time you see it, you'll have the cap loose. I'm going to go push the pedal to the floor a couple times and remove the cap, and then I'm going to re-bleed it. All right, I pushed the pedal to the floor a couple more times. I got the cap off, and now it's really going to start bleeding. All right, here we go. Wrong way. Now look at it go. Oop, got a little bit more air. Can you look at it bleeding now? That's what I like. All right, I think that's good. So that one's done. Tighten back up. Put your little boot back on it. And keep the dirt from getting in there. That one's done. I'll go to the other side. Got some out of that one too. And how good's it leaking? Dripping? Dripping pretty good. All right. That's good. All right, I'm done. All right, now all you do is clean that excess brake fluid off. Put my little cap back on there, dust boot. Go ahead and lower it back down, start it up, push pedal to the floor as hard as you can a couple times, and then come back out here and double check your brake hose where it goes into the caliper. Make sure it's not wet around it. And if it's all good, then you're all set. Go ahead and put your tires on. Torque the lugs to 140 foot-pounds. And lower down to the ground and double check you do have a good brake pedal. Top off your brake fluid level. And then that's it. That's how you do your brakes in the front with calipers. Hopefully I helped you out. And if I did, hopefully you can help me out by subscribing to me, and I appreciate it.